Every wedding dreams of perfection. Flowers, music, love in the air. But give people free food and an audience, and suddenly, it's open season for nonsense. What starts as happily ever after can turn into, you won't believe what they complained about. 1. Kicking off our list is a mother of the groom who formally complained to the wedding planner that the chosen shade of sage green for the bridesmaid dresses was a direct, personal attack. Apparently, the color made her look sallow and unwell in all the family photos. She suggested they Photoshop every single dress to a more flattering dusty rose. Otherwise, she couldn't in good conscience share the pictures on her Facebook. Because, the wedding was really all about her social media presence. 2. Imagine having a full complimentary open bar at your wedding, only for a distant cousin to pull you aside during the reception to complain. His issue? The bar was stocked with Johnny Walker Black Label, but not the far superior Blue Label. He actually said, and I quote, "It just shows a lack of commitment to the guest experience." The groom reportedly told him the real lack of commitment was his $10 gift from the registry. The audacity is just breathtaking. 3. At a wedding with a beautiful buffet, a guest lodged a formal complaint with the catering manager because the vegan option, a mushroom Wellington, looked deceptively delicious. He argued that he was tricked into taking a slice, only to discover it contained no meat, which he considered false advertising. He demanded a partial refund on his wedding gift for the emotional distress of accidentally eating a vegetable. I'm not sure that's how gift-giving works, buddy. 4. A couple splurged on a beautiful destination wedding in Hawaii, only to receive an angry email from an aunt a week later. She complained that the ocean was too loud outside her hotel room, preventing her from getting a good night's sleep. Furthermore, she was upset that there was too much sand on the beach, which got into her shoes and was just generally inconvenient. She was complaining about the fundamental properties of a beach. At a beach wedding. 5. You absolutely cannot make this up. A guest cornered the father of the bride to complain that the couple's handwritten vows were overly emotional and self-indulgent. This person felt it was inappropriate for the bride and groom to be so openly in love, claiming it made the single guests feel uncomfortable and excluded. Apparently, the ideal wedding ceremony is one where the couple looks vaguely annoyed with each other, just to keep the vibes neutral for everyone else. 6. A wedding guest took to the couple's public wedding website after the event to leave a 1-star review. The reason for this digital protest? The cake was lemon raspberry, not chocolate. The review stated that by not offering a chocolate option, the couple had failed to consider the basic palate of the American public, and that the choice was a slap in the face to cake lovers everywhere. Imagine being so offended by a free dessert that you feel the need to publicly shame the newlyweds. 7. After a lavish wedding at a historic estate, one uncle complained that while the valet parking was complimentary, his car was returned to him slightly dustier than when he'd arrived. He theorized that the long gravel driveway was to blame and suggested the couple should have had it paved before the wedding for a better guest experience. He even sent them a bill for a $5 car wash. The couple paid it just to make the sheer absurdity stop. 8. In a bizarre twist on wedding drama, a couple who specifically held a child-friendly wedding received a complaint from a parent. The issue wasn't that kids were present. It was that the bouncy castle they rented was not challenging enough for her 7-year-old son, Trevor. She insisted that a simple bounce house was infantilizing, and that they should have provided a miniature rock-climbing wall or a ninja warrior course to foster his development. Trevor was last seen happily eating cake and bouncing. 9. A bridesmaid complained to the bride, the day after the wedding, mind you, that the groomsman she was paired with for the procession was not of her caliber. She elaborated that he worked in IT, which she found boring, and didn't laugh at any of her jokes. She felt the bride should have done a more thorough personality screening before finalizing the wedding party pairings, as if she was casting a reality TV show instead of celebrating her own marriage. The friendship, predictably, did not survive. 10. The DJ at a reception received a written complaint on a cocktail napkin from a guest who was furious that the danceable music didn't start until after dinner. The note argued that the quiet dinner music killed the momentum from the cocktail hour and that the couple was selfish for wanting to eat their $1,000 meal in relative peace. He demanded the DJ immediately play Uptown Funk while people were still trying to finish their salmon, because nothing aids digestion like a forced conga line. 11. A guest named Chad complained to the maid of honor that the rustic barn venue had no Wi-Fi signal. When she explained it was an intentional choice for an unplugged ceremony, he was horrified. He actually said, "But how am I supposed to live tweet the ceremony? My followers are expecting content." He spent the rest of the night walking around with his phone in the air, desperately searching for a single bar of service, completely missing the entire party he was supposed to be enjoying. 12. For their outdoor wedding, the couple was blessed with a beautiful, sunny day, albeit a bit windy. This was apparently unacceptable for one guest who approached the bride's father to complain about the weather. He insisted that for the amount of money they must have spent, they should have had a better wind contingency plan. He didn't offer any suggestions, just stood there, arms crossed, as if the couple could somehow command the atmosphere to be still for his convenience. 13. The seating chart is always a minefield, but this one is special. A woman named Brenda was furious she was seated at a table with the groom's rowdy college friends, instead of with the bride's more distinguished older relatives. She complained to the wedding planner that her placement was a direct reflection of how the couple values her social standing, and demanded to be moved. The college friends, by the way, were all successful doctors and engineers having a fantastic time. 14. A couple flew in a beloved family friend from Ireland to officiate their wedding. After the ceremony, a guest told the groom that while the vows were lovely, the officiant's thick Irish accent was incredibly distracting. She said, and I'm not making this up, "I spent the whole time trying to decipher what he was saying instead of focusing on the sanctity of the moment." Most guests found the accent charming. This one person apparently wanted the sacred vows delivered in perfect, monotone newscaster English. 15. This wasn't a complaint about a gift, but about the lack of a certain gift on the registry. The bride's great-aunt pulled her aside to express her disappointment that the couple had registered for things like a stand mixer and nice luggage. She looked the bride dead in the eye and said, "It's all so frivolous. What you young people really need is a good set of encyclopedias, and you didn't even give me the option to buy you one." Yes, in the age of the internet, encyclopedias. 16. A guest named John was permitted to bring a +1, a woman named Tiffany he had been dating for about 3 weeks. He later sent an angry text to the groom complaining that the seating chart and place card simply said John Smith and guest. He felt it was impersonal and frankly rude that Tiffany wasn't named individually, arguing that the couple should have called him beforehand to ask for her full name, for a woman they had never even met. 17. It takes a special kind of audacity to complain to the wedding photographer, but one guest managed it. He flagged down the professional, who was busy capturing the first dance, to complain that there were too many photos being taken of the bride and groom. He then said, "Can you focus more on table 7? We're the groom's cousins, and we want some nice group shots for our own Christmas cards." This guest literally tried to redirect the paid photographer to do his private family photo shoot. 18. The couple's signature cocktail was a spicy Paloma. A guest, who considered himself a cocktail aficionado, complained to the bartender that serving a tequila-based drink was culturally insensitive because the couple wasn't Hispanic. He accused them of reducing a proud nation's heritage to a trendy beverage. The bartender, a lovely man actually from Mexico, just smiled and told him, "Sir, it's just grapefruit soda and tequila. Please relax." 19. For their grand exit, the couple used beautiful, eco-friendly lavender buds for guests to toss. A younger cousin complained directly to the bride that the lavender didn't have the same visual pop as glitter or traditional rice. She then showed the bride the blurry photo on her phone and sighed, "My Instagram story of this moment is just going to be really underwhelming." Apparently, preserving the planet is less important than getting a few extra likes from strangers online. 20. The wedding favor was a tiny, adorable succulent in a personalized pot. It was a thoughtful, lasting memento. Or so the couple thought. A guest, let's call her Karen, tracked down the mother of the bride and said, "I just want you to know that this favor is actually a burden." When asked to explain, she huffed, "Now I'm responsible for keeping a plant alive. You've given me a chore, not a gift." She then left the succulent on the table, presumably to die alone. 21. You can't please everyone, and this is proof. An older uncle complained to the groom that the volume of the dinner music was outrageous and that he couldn't hear himself think. The groom politely asked the DJ to lower it. Less than 5 minutes later, a bridesmaid came up to him and complained, "Why is the music so quiet? It feels like a library in here. You're killing the vibe." The groom just gave up and went to the bar. 22. After the wedding, a guest sent the couple an itemized bill for gasoline and travel time. His reasoning? The venue, a beautiful estate they had booked over a year prior, was a grossly inconvenient 45-minute drive from his suburban home. In his email, he suggested that a more considerate couple would have chosen a venue closer to a major highway like a hotel ballroom to minimize the burden on their guests. The bill was for $17.50. 23. Perhaps the most existentially bizarre complaint came from a friend of the groom, a self-proclaimed pragmatist. He told the groom at the reception, "I'm having a good time, but honestly, this whole thing feels a bit premature." He then explained that, statistically, couples who date for only 3 years before marriage have a higher divorce rate. He was, in essence, complaining that the wedding was happening at all, based on his own pessimistic analysis of their relationship. What a buzzkill. 24. The bride's new mother-in-law, desperate to feel involved, complained after the ceremony that she wasn't given enough stressful, last-minute jobs to do. She insisted that by having everything so well organized, the bride had robbed her of the chance to truly bond through chaos. The bride just stood there, blinking, unsure how to respond to someone complaining about a complete lack of drama and a smoothly run event. Apparently, the real gift she wanted was the opportunity to have a panic attack on their behalf. 25. You've heard of guests complaining about long ceremonies, but this is a new one. A cousin of the groom drove 2 hours and then complained that the ceremony was too short. He literally told the groom, "15 minutes? I've waited in line longer at the DMV. You guys couldn't have added a poem or something to make the trip worthwhile?" The groom, still on a high from saying "I do," just stared at him blankly before walking away. Some people bring gifts. Others bring baffling logistical critiques. 26. The couple's beloved golden retriever, Winston, served as the ring bearer, complete with a little bow tie. This was apparently a grievous offense to one great-aunt who complained that having an animal in the ceremony was unsanitary and undignified. The bride just smiled sweetly and replied, "Well, Mildred, Winston has been in the family longer than my husband has." The argument ended there. You just can't win against a dog in a tiny tuxedo. 27. For their gifts, the groom bought all his groomsmen matching novelty socks with little pizza slices on them. One of them, a guy named Bryce, flatly refused to wear them. He pulled the best man aside and argued that the socks were childish and that, quote, "My ankles have a reputation to uphold." The groom, overhearing this, just wordlessly handed him a pair of plain black socks from his gym bag. Some battles aren't worth fighting, especially when they're about ankle-level dignity. 28. At the end of the night, a guest named Diane was caught by the wedding planner trying to walk out with one of the large, elaborate floral centerpieces. When politely informed they were rentals, Diane became indignant. "So you're telling me I got all dressed up and sat here for 5 hours for nothing?" The wedding planner, a seasoned professional, simply blocked her path and smiled. She thought guest was synonymous with heist participant. 29. The groom was casually mentioning his honeymoon plans, a quiet, romantic cabin retreat in the mountains, when a coworker, Kevin, chimed in. "A cabin? No nightlife? No cell service? What are you guys even going to do all week?" The groom just gave him a slow, knowing smirk and replied, "Figure it out, Kevin." The coworker just stood there, genuinely confused, having clearly forgotten the primary function of a honeymoon. 30. A guest's +1 informed the catering staff that she had a severe, nightshade-adjacent fruit allergy, which she had conveniently failed to mention on the RSVP. Her main target was the tomato garnish on the salad. With a straight face, she told the waiter, "My aura is simply incompatible with acidic fruits." The chef, a man of few words, sent out a plate of plain lettuce with a note that read, "Aura compatible." Some people have allergies, others just have a pathological need for attention. 31. The timing of wedding traditions can be tricky. One guest missed the cake cutting because he was in the bathroom. Instead of just shrugging it off, he found the mother of the bride and demanded they reenact the moment so he could get a picture. She laughed, assuming it was a joke. It was not. He just stood there, phone in hand, waiting expectantly. His personal bladder schedule was now officially the wedding's problem. 32. For their first dance, the couple chose a modern indie folk song they both loved. This prompted an English major cousin to approach the bride and offer a full literary analysis. The central metaphor is a bit on the nose, don't you think? And the rhyme scheme is so simplistic. The bride, still basking in the romantic moment, simply replied, "We just think it's pretty." The cousin just shook her head in disappointment. She wanted a dissertation. They just wanted a dance. 33. Due to a large turnout, some guests had to use the overflow parking, which was located a scenic 3-minute walk away down a paved, tree-lined path. One guest complained that this short stroll was an excessive physical demand and that the couple should have provided a golf cart shuttle service. The father of the bride just nodded politely, as if he'd be sure to take that feedback directly to God for the next wedding. 34. 2 months after the wedding, the couple received a text from an aunt. It wasn't to say thanks. It was to complain that the font on their thank you card was a cold, impersonal sans serif. Her text actually read, "A joyous occasion deserves the warmth of a good serif font. This feels like I'm reading a corporate invoice." The groom, baffled into silence, simply texted back, "Thank you for your feedback." 35. A pregnant friend of the bride was thrilled with the non-alcoholic drink selection. So thrilled, in fact, that she complained about it. She lamented that the 3 custom-made, delicious mocktails were too good, creating a paradox of choice that was stressful. She argued it was unfair that she had so many amazing options while the drinkers just had their boring old beer and wine. It's the ultimate first-world problem, being oppressed by excellent service. 36. A history buff uncle took issue with the props in the photo booth. He cornered a bridesmaid to complain that the props were anachronistic chaos. He looked her dead in the eye and said, "That Viking helmet has absolutely no business being next to a 1920s feather boa. It's historically illiterate." The bridesmaid, already on her 3rd glass of champagne, just handed him a rubber chicken and asked, "And where does this little guy fit in your timeline?" He had no answer. 37. The wedding was held at a beautiful vineyard. Naturally, the wine was a highlight. Or it was supposed to be. A guest who fancies himself a sommelier complained that the winery's award-winning Cabernet Sauvignon was served at approximately 68 degrees Fahrenheit instead of the optimal 65. He actually had a pocket thermometer and was showing it to other guests. The groom's dad saw this, walked over and said, "Son, if you're not enjoying it, feel free to switch to the Capri Sun we have for the kids." 38. A guest complained that the speeches were too personal. He told the best man that the heartfelt stories and inside jokes between the groom and his friends were alienating to those who didn't know them from childhood. He suggested that for future weddings, speakers should stick to generic platitudes about love and happiness to ensure a more universally accessible emotional experience. He basically wanted a Hallmark card read aloud instead of an actual meaningful tribute. 39. The couple chose to have a food truck serving gourmet tacos instead of a traditional sit-down dinner. This was a huge hit with almost everyone, except for one aunt. She complained that having to walk outside and stand in a short, festive line for her food was undignified. She said, "I wore heels for a reason, and it wasn't to forage for my own dinner like some sort of urban pioneer." The bride just pointed to the pile of complimentary flip-flops by the dance floor and kept walking. 40. After the ceremony, a guest approached the groom not to congratulate him, but to complain about the processional music. The bride had walked down the aisle to an instrumental string quartet version of a popular rock song. The guest insisted it was thematically inappropriate and said, "The original lyrics are about a breakup. Did no one on your team do their research?" This man literally fact-checked the emotional centerpiece of their wedding day. 41. During the father-daughter dance, a distant relative, phone in hand, complained that the lighting was too moody and romantic, which was ruining his video. He flagged down the wedding planner and asked if they could bring up the house lights for just that one song so his personal recording would be less grainy. The planner, a master of diplomatic shutdowns, simply replied, "Sir, the couple paid for ambiance, not for your documentary." 42. A co-worker of the bride complained that the wedding was on a Friday. Not because it was inconvenient, but because it ruined the natural rhythm of the work week. She told the bride, "Now my whole weekend feels off. I've been mentally prepared for a 2-day weekend, and this extra day of celebration has thrown off my entire internal clock." She was complaining about getting a 3-day weekend. Let that one sink in. 43. The wedding cake was a stunning multi-tiered masterpiece. But one guest, after eating his slice, complained that the frosting-to-cake ratio was structurally unsound. He was an engineer and proceeded to draw a diagram on a napkin for the bride's father, explaining how a denser buttercream and a lower cake-to-frosting shear modulus would have provided a better mouthfeel. The father just folded the napkin, put it in his pocket, and said, "I'll pass this vital intelligence on to the baker." 44. At the reception, a guest complained that the DJ was playing too many songs that made people want to dance. I am not kidding. He wanted to have a deep, intellectual conversation with his table mates and found the infectious upbeat music to be a major distraction. He asked if the DJ could play some ambient whale sounds or a Philip Glass album to foster a more cerebral atmosphere. This was during the peak dancing hour of the party. 45. The save the date was a magnet for the fridge featuring a nice photo of the couple. A guest complained to the bride's mother that the magnet was too strong. He claimed it was so powerful that it was scratching the stainless steel finish on his new smart refrigerator every time he had to move it to get a new grocery list underneath. He suggested they owed him for the potential micro-abrasions on his appliance. 46. In a truly bold move, a guest complained about the overly positive atmosphere. He was a struggling artist who told the groom, "This relentless display of joy and functional relationships is really stifling my creative melancholy." He said he was having trouble accessing his inner darkness amidst all the laughter and celebration, which was going to set his painting schedule back by at least a week. The groom just patted him on the shoulder and said, "The struggle is real, man." 47. The bride and groom, being huge sci-fi fans, had a small, subtle Star Wars reference in their vows, saying, "I love you, and I know." A guest later complained that by including a nerdy pop culture reference, they had trivialized the sacred institution of marriage. She felt that vows should be timeless, and that their little inside joke would seem cringy and dated in a few years. She was essentially critiquing their love language for not being formal enough for her tastes. 48. The couple hired a live painter to capture the reception scene, a unique and beautiful touch. One woman complained to the artist that her depiction in the painting was unflattering. She insisted that the impressionistic style made her chin look vague, and that he hadn't quite captured her good side. She was complaining to an artist, painting a crowd of 150 people in real time, that her tiny 1-inch tall likeness wasn't portrait perfect. The artist just smiled and painted a flower over her. 49. An older uncle, let's call him Arthur, complained that the couple's online gift registry made everything too easy and soulless. He actually told the groom's father, "Where's the thrill of the hunt? Where's the adventure of finding the last gravy boat in the tri-state area?" Shopping for a wedding gift used to build character. For him, modern convenience wasn't a feature. It was a bug that deprived him of a manufactured struggle. 50. The dress code was black tie optional, a fairly common standard. This, however, sent one guest into a spiral of anxiety. She complained to the maid of honor that the ambiguity of the word optional caused her weeks of psychological distress. She insisted a firm black tie, or cocktail attire, would have been kinder than forcing this sartorial Sophie's choice upon her. She had successfully turned a simple wardrobe suggestion into her own personal emotional crisis. 51. At a particularly lavish wedding, a guest named Cynthia found the bride to complain about the soap in the restrooms. She looked the bride dead in the eye mid-reception and said, "The venue is stunning, dear, but the generic foam soap in the ladies' room really cheapens the whole experience. I was expecting a nice milled bar, perhaps with a light lavender scent." The bride, who was currently paying $50,000 for this party, just blinked. The entire event was nearly ruined by a disappointing hand-washing experience. Tafferthy 52. This one is just baffling. A guest complained to her friend after the wedding that the bride's smile in the photos looked too perfect and unrealistic. She elaborated that the bride's consistent happiness throughout the day felt inauthentic, and that she would have preferred to see a more dynamic range of emotions. She was, in essence, complaining that the bride looked too happy at her own wedding. The bar for what people will criticize is officially on the floor. 53. The couple, being foodies, served a deconstructed Caesar salad for the first course. A guest named Mark was not amused. He flagged down a waiter to complain that he had been served salad ingredients, but not an actual salad. He grumbled, "I've been given homework on a plate. Now I have to do the chef's job for him?" The groom, walking by, just said, "It's a fancy crouton with some lettuce, Mark. You'll survive." It was a culinary adventure, and Mark just wanted to stay home. 54. After the professional photos were posted online, a guest emailed the couple with an urgent request. She had found a picture of herself in the background of the first dance, caught mid-chew with a mouthful of bread. She demanded they either take the photo down immediately or pay to have her professionally photoshopped to look more poised. Her fleeting, unglamorous moment had now become their financial and administrative responsibility. 55. For the grand exit, guests were given cones of biodegradable confetti. One guest, a self-proclaimed wellness guru, complained that the confetti represented a respiratory hazard. She insisted that the tiny, fluttering pieces of paper could be accidentally inhaled, disrupting the body's natural energy flow. The father of the bride just looked at her and said, "It's paper, Susan." She spent the entire confetti toss with her pashmina held over her face, as if surviving a glittery sandstorm. 56. A guest complained that the couple had invited her recent ex-boyfriend to the wedding. Her complaint wasn't that she had to see him, but that the couple failed to provide her with a courtesy heads-up, so she could mentally prepare her narrative. She felt she was owed a preemptive warning to strategize her social interactions. Apparently, navigating a party is fine, but doing it without a complete intelligence briefing is just unacceptable. 57. The ceremony was scheduled to begin at 5 p.m. To everyone's surprise, it started at exactly 5 p.m. A notoriously late cousin complained to her mother that this was incredibly rude. She argued, "Nobody actually starts on time. Everyone knows there's a built-in 15-minute grace period for guests to find their seats." She was genuinely offended that the couple's punctuality had exposed her own tardiness. 58. A guest with a background in graphic design cornered a bridesmaid to complain about the brand inconsistency of the wedding. She pointed out that the elegant serif font on the invitations didn't match the modern sans serif on the menus. which was also different from the script font on the place cards. She said with a sigh, "The messaging is just all over the place. It shows a real lack of a cohesive brand identity." The bridesmaid was left wondering when exactly a marriage had become a brand that required its own style guide. 59. The couple politely requested contributions to a honeymoon fund instead of physical gifts. The groom's great-aunt was appalled. She cornered the bride and said this was the tackiest thing she'd ever seen, akin to panhandling. "A gift is something you can hold, something with permanence," she lectured. "You can't put a down payment on a memory." The bride, without missing a beat, sweetly replied, "You can with a credit card, which is what this fund helps us pay off." The conversation ended promptly. 60. A guest named Gary complained that the choice of round tables for the reception promoted forced intimacy and confrontational social dynamics. He explained to the wedding planner that he prefers long rectangular tables where he can strategically manage his conversations without having to make eye contact with everyone. The planner just stared at him, unable to process a complaint rooted in the geometric psychology of event furniture. 61. The champagne toast was a festive moment with bubbly flowing freely. One guest, however, made a point of loudly complaining that it was Prosecco, not true champagne from France. He told anyone who would listen, "A celebration of this magnitude demands French champagne. Serving Italian sparkling wine is a fiscal shortcut, and it shows." The bride's father, who was paying for it all, overheard and simply replied, "The marriage is real, the bubbly is for fun. Drink up or don't." 62. You can't escape the gearheads. A guest who was an amateur photography enthusiast cornered the professional photographer to critique his equipment. "You're shooting on mirrorless," he said with a sigh. "I just feel like a full-frame DSLR captures the soul of a moment so much better. The sensor is just warmer." The professional, who was busy working, just nodded and said, "Thanks for the feedback," before turning to capture a shot of a kid sliding across the dance floor on his knees. 63. 2 months after the wedding, an aunt called the bride's mother not to reminisce, but to complain about the thank you card. Her issue? The note thanked her for the generous gift, but failed to mention the specific item, a toaster, or elaborate on how that toaster would enrich their lives together. She was expecting a personalized essay on the transformative power of perfectly browned bread in a new marriage. 64. A guest with a fondness for ghost hunting shows complained that the historic mansion venue had a heavy, oppressive energy. She pulled the bride aside during the reception to whisper that she felt a distinct chill near the main staircase and was certain a melancholy spirit was present. She was complaining about a potential haunting. The bride, bewildered, just said, "Well, as long as the ghost doesn't complain about the open bar, I think we'll be okay." 65. The DJ was on fire, seamlessly blending classics with modern hits. But not for one guest. He actually submitted a formal complaint on a napkin, stating that the transition from Earth, Wind and Fire's September into a Taylor Swift song was an act of sonic violence. He wrote that the tonal whiplash is unforgivable and shows a shocking disregard for musical flow. He was critiquing the DJ's setlist like a scorned music critic reviewing a failed symphony. 66. A week after the wedding, a guest sent a direct message to the bride on Instagram. She was upset that she hadn't been tagged in any of the professional photos that were posted. The bride politely explained she was in the background of several group shots. The guest replied, "But my face wasn't tagged. My followers won't know I was there unless my handle is on my face." Her attendance was apparently contingent on verifiable social media evidence. 67. A lawyer friend of the groom waited until the end of the night to offer his feedback. His single, most pressing complaint? The pen used to sign the official marriage license. He told the groom, with a completely straight face, it was a cheap ballpoint. A legally binding document of this importance should be signed with a proper fountain pen. It just calls the entire proceeding's gravitas into question. This man wanted to veto a marriage based on substandard office supplies. 68. For their grand exit, the couple drove off in a brand new top-of-the-line Tesla. A car enthusiast guest later complained to his friends that the choice lacked romantic soul. He lamented that they didn't choose a classic convertible with a loud, rumbling engine, calling their modern, eco-friendly choice a cold, silent, and anticlimactic end to an otherwise warm day. He was disappointed their getaway car didn't produce enough noise and exhaust fumes. 69. And for the grand finale of complaints, a guest with a freshly minted sociology degree cornered the groom by the cake table. He wasn't complaining about the food or the music. He was complaining about the entire concept of the wedding itself, calling it a problematic and archaic celebration of a patriarchal institution. He then offered to send the groom some fascinating articles by Foucault. The groom, a married man for all of 3 hours, just smiled, patted him on the back and said, "Thanks, man. I'll add it to my reading list right after we get back from Tahiti." Here's what I want to know. What's the pettiest thing you've ever seen someone lose it over? Drop it in the comments. And if this restored your faith that common sense is truly extinct, hit like and subscribe, because we're just getting started.